Again, before we begin, I need to acknowledge where this episode is going to take us. See, we're stepping into the world of hidden communities. These are spaces that thrive on secrecy and prey on pain. And for some, this may feel heavy or unsettling. So if at any moment you feel overwhelmed, again, please give yourself permission to pause or step away. See, protecting your well-being is always more important than pushing through any of these episodes in this series. For those of you who do continue, I promise you this. I promise that even as we face the darkness, I will keep pointing us toward hope. Because intimacy and integrity are stronger than any whisper in the darkness. There are communities that shape us. They tell us who we are, what we are worth, and what's possible. And when those communities are healthy, they call us into courage. They nurture belonging. They create safety. But when they're toxic, especially when they're hidden, they do the exact opposite. They magnify the pain, and they trap you in hopelessness, and they turn your wounds into chains. The 764 movement thrives in exactly these kind of hidden spaces. It's not loud and in the open. It doesn't spread its message by shouting from the rooftops. It spreads in whispers, in these quiet forums, and in these secret chats and dark corners of the internet where despair can hide without being challenged. And for someone who feels unseen or unwanted, those whispers can sound a lot like home. And that's what makes hidden communities so powerful. They don't just echo your pain, they actually normalize it. They say, your despair isn't just yours, it's ours. You belong here. And for someone who's been starving for this kind of recognition, that sounds like relief. But here's the hook. Instead of healing your wounds, they entrench them. Instead of calling you forward, they keep you stuck. The community that promises belonging now becomes the very place that imprisons you. I've seen the pull of these spaces firsthand. See, when you feel isolated, when you believe that no one in your real life understands what you're going through, the allure of a secret community is intoxicating. It's a place where you can drop your mask and where your pain is not only acknowledged, but it's also shared. But there's a cost. That secrecy comes at the expense of your growth. Those whispers reinforce the despair rather than challenging it. And before you realize it, you're not just a part of a group, you're also part of that trap. And this is why secrecy is so dangerous. Secrecy creates environments where falsehood thrives unchallenged. But when no one outside the group can see what's happening, accountability basically disappears. And when accountability disappears, exploitation multiplies. And that's how the 764 movement sustains itself. Not through mass movements in the open, but through countless micro communities that are hidden from the light. But here's the truth. Integrity and intimacy are antidotes, I believe. Integrity refuses to hide in the shadows. It, in essence, says, if this is true, then it can withstand the light. And intimacy refuses to settle for counterfeit belonging. It says, I want to be known and not just echoed. I want connection that heals, not a community that cages me. When we live with integrity and intimacy, hidden communities lose their grip, though the whispers lose their power. So this episode today will unpack why secrecy gives despair its strength, and how hidden communities exploit vulnerability, and also what it takes to break free from these. Because whispers in the dark are powerful, but they are never stronger than the light of truth and from the courage of truly connecting. See, hidden communities don't appear out of nowhere. They They form where unmet needs gather, where gain goes unacknowledged, where wounds don't find healing. And for many young men, the internet has become the default place to bring those needs. I mean, it's accessible, it's anonymous, it's instant. You don't have to risk this awkward silence of rejection. You don't have to look someone in the eyes and admit that you're lonely and that you don't feel like you matter. You can type it into a search bar and then join a forum or stumble into a chat where others are echoing that same despair. And at first, this feels so much like belonging. Finally, you're not the only one. Finally, someone else gets it. Finally, the things that you've been afraid to say out loud are actually being spoken without any shame. And that initial comfort can be powerful. It feels like a lifeline, if you will. But then here's the deception. It's not really belonging, it's actually just mirroring. See, true belonging requires growth and accountability and love. Mirroring just reflects your pain back to you and then convinces you that this is all you'll ever be. And this is why the early stages of hidden communities are so deceptive. They validate your feelings, but they don't really challenge them. They provide connection, but not really transformation. They promise understanding, but they never really offer a way out. And before long, what felt like rescue initially starts now to look like resignation. And you no longer believe that freedom is possible because the group tells you that it is not. The psychology behind this is quite simple and devastating. But when pain is echoed, it feels lighter. But when it's only echoed, it also multiplies. It becomes the shared language of a community. It becomes the very foundation of their identity. And then the longer that you stay, the more that identity begins to cement. And you're not just someone who's hurting now, you're actually defined by your hurt. You're not just someone who's feeling rejected, you are rejection. And that's the trap of these hidden communities. For young men especially, this is dangerous. See, our culture already tells men to suppress vulnerability and to hide weakness and to pretend that everything is fine. And so when a hidden group finally names that pain, it feels revolutionary. But without integrity and intimacy, it becomes a counterfeit revolution. Integrity would say, yes, I'm in pain, but that's not the whole story. That's not my entire identity. And intimacy would say, I need more than just an echo. I need to be known, and I need to be challenged, and I also need to be loved in the midst of all that. Without those, validation just becomes a cage. And here's the thing. Not all hidden communities are sinister at first, I think. See, many begin with these good intentions. There's people who are gathering to support each other and to share their experiences and to find solidarity. But without light, even good intentions can rot. When secrecy defines the space, accountability disappears. And when accountability disappears, despair becomes a doctrine. And this is why hidden communities feel like belonging, but actually are breeding bondage. They meet your need for recognition, but they also deny your need for growth. They may soothe your loneliness, but they'll starve your wholeness. They whisper, you belong here, but what they really mean is, you can never leave now. And the consequences of these hidden communities rarely stay hidden. See, what begins as this private escape eventually bleeds out into every other part of life. A man who once seemed engaged with family now starts to withdraw. A student who had ambitions begins now to drift. A friend who maybe showed up for gatherings now just stops answering calls. The whispers in the dark become louder than the voices of those who truly love this person. This erosion often goes unnoticed, in the beginning. Families will see subtle shifts, maybe longer hours online, right? Shorter conversations at the dinner table, an increasing defensiveness when asked just simple questions. And friends notice the change in tone. There's less laughter, and there's more cynicism, there's more dismissive remarks, especially about hope or possibility. And communities also feel this absence of their presence. It's like a slow fade from the spaces that once held connection. But the most dangerous cost is the one that happens internally. You see, hidden communities convince men that despair is the most honest perspective, and that cynicism is maturity, and that hope is foolish. And when that narrative takes root, it doesn't just distort how you see the world. Now it also distorts how you also see yourself. And you stop believing that you're capable of any growth. You stop believing that relationships can actually heal. And you stop believing that your life has any worth beyond the echo chamber you're in. And when you stop believing these things, you stop living fully. This is how hidden communities fracture families. Parents don't just lose communication, they also lose trust. They feel like they're competing with this invisible presence that they cannot even confront. Siblings feel the gap beginning to widen as their brother lives in two different worlds, one they can see and one that they can't. Partners also feel this ache of intimacy that has been denied, realizing that no matter how much they offer, there's a shadow space that's always pulling him away. And communities as well suffer. See, when despair is multiplied and normalized in hidden corners, the broader culture feels its negativity. Negativity spreads like smoke, and conversations become marked by sarcasm and resignation and suspicion. And the collective imagination just shrinks. People stop dreaming of what could be and now settle just for what is. And a culture that should be fueled by vision now becomes one that survives on cynicism. This is the ripple effect. One man's pain doesn't just stay with him. See, when his vulnerability is exploited in secret, the consequences extend to his family, his friendships, his workplace, his community. Hidden communities don't just isolate the individual, they hollow them out from society itself. And yet, even in this abysmal state, there is hope. See, the moment one man chooses to bring his struggle into the light, the whispers begin to lose their hold. The moment a family creates a space for vulnerability, secrecy begins to crumble. That moment when a community realizes and then starts to normalize integrity and intimacy, counterfeit belonging cannot survive. Light does not need to shout to defeat darkness. It just needs to shine. And the truth is, hidden communities will always exist. Pain will always seek a place to gather. Loneliness will always look for a home. But here's the question though. Will those homes be built on secrecy, or will they be built on light? Will they be these echo chambers of despair, or will they be circles of healing? See, the difference is not whether communities form, it's what those communities are actually built on. Real belonging does not whisper in the dark. It speaks out in the open. It doesn't hide behind secrecy. It thrives in honesty. And it doesn't just echo your pain, it calls you into growth. That's the difference between counterfeit and authentic communities. The false ones comfort you into captivity, whereas the real ones challenge you into freedom. For young men who may be listening, this is where courage comes in. It takes courage to admit the whispers have hooked you. It takes courage to step out of the shadows and into the light. It takes massive courage to risk being seen in all of your vulnerability. But courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is the decision to act even while fear lingers. And, and when you act with integrity, you begin to break free from the grip of secrecy. And for families, I want you to hear this invitation. Create spaces where hiddenness is not necessary. Ask questions with patience. Listen without any judgment. Show your sons and your brothers, your loved ones, that vulnerability won't be mocked or dismissed in your space. When a home becomes a safe place to speak one's pain, the allure of these hidden communities will weaken. And for communities at large, this is a call. Normalize authenticity. Celebrate people who have aligned, not just people who are performing. Value intimacy over image. Create these cultures where people don't have to hide to be accepted. Because when integrity and intimacy flourish, counterfeit belonging begins to die. My mission here at Uber Vintagers is to call men into these lives of integrity and intimacy, because I believe secrecy does not have to define us. Wholeness is possible. Light is stronger than darkness. Real communities are stronger than false ones. The whispers in the dark may be powerful, but they are never ultimate. So, here's the choice before us. Do we stay in the shadows, or do we step into the light? Do we believe the whispers, or do we believe the truth? See, counterfeit belonging can risk intimacy. The power of hidden communities is real, but it cannot withstand men who choose integrity, or families who choose openness, or cultures that choose authenticity. Whispers lose their power the moment someone dares to speak aloud in the light. I hope you will take this challenge, this invitation to step into the light. Let me know in the comments how this episode landed for you. I'd love to hear, and I'll see you in the next episode.